Yes, good afternoon and welcome to your darling program, The Spring Clinic, from Western Spring Television, Osogbo, Osun State. You can see us on channel 190 Star Time, and also on our YouTube channels and Twitter and Facebook. It's a pleasure having you here this afternoon. Spring Clinic is a platform where we discuss different aspects of our health. We know that health is wealth, and we need correct knowledge to be able to access correct interventions, and also to be able to keep healthy. I am Dr. Oyewole, your regular anchor on this program, and I have with me this afternoon to discuss a very important subject with us. I have Mr. John OCHOLI, the campaign manager of Osun 2023 Free Net Distribution. He's from the Society for Family Health, Abuja. You are welcome, Mr. John OCHOLI.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, viewer.
Thank you, sir. Yes, malaria has been with there for almost a century, yes, and it has a lot of historical significance. Yes. If I when they mention that somebody is going to do something about malaria, yeah, I remember that when I was doing one of the courses in the seminary, a good number of our missionaries actually died, yes, as a result of malaria. Yes. Bowen lost his daughter, and then invariably he himself had to go back home because of malaria. So malaria has been with us, and up till now, I think it's still quite, the impact on our health is still quite significant. Yes. So what do you think? Is it still as strong as it has been, despite the fact that we have had drugs that have handled it, we have gotten to know more about this particular illness? So why are you still bothered? Either at an organization, Society for Family Health, and then of course for you to be the campaign manager for Free Net Distribution in Osun State.
Yeah, so thank you again. And just to say, from both sides, if we look at it, we can have both thoughts or both kind of feeling. The first is it still something we should worry about? Yes, we should worry about it, because the statistics coming for malaria in Nigeria and around the world still shows that malaria is a significant health issue that all of us must pay close attention to. For example, malaria accounts for about 3 in 10 children deaths in the country. 1 in 10 deaths for pregnant women, complications of childbirth and others. If you do an economic calculation of how much economic time or value is lost to malaria, you see that is something very, very huge. Especially
for those who will say, please, I have malaria, I'm not coming to work.
Exactly. Maybe
and like
not coming to work, not going to school.
Not going to school.
For adults, you can talk about the way you feel and express it sometimes and decide not to. Mm-hmm. For children, they can't even speak, and it can just be eaten into the body.
Absolutely.
And that's why we have a lot of mortality of children caused by malaria. And if you look at the burden around the world, Nigeria contributes a lot of percentage to the burden around the world.
Why is Nigeria peculiar about this contribution?
Yeah, so Nigeria, it's one, by sheer size of population, we're huge in this part of the world where malaria is endemic. And now Nigeria is a malaria endemic place generally, because if you take it from the north to the coast, every part of Nigeria, there's no place you go and say you can't have malaria.
What's responsible for that?
It's the transmission. It's the transmission.
Any factor that is peculiar to Nigeria that is making it endemic?
So I think our country, it's the weather here is conducive for the breeding of the Anopheles mosquito that transmits the malaria.
Will it be also because of our practices? Beyond the fact that the environment is conducive, are there some of our practices too that encourage it?
So those are the behaviors that we have looked in, and a lot of thoughts have come into it that have led to the management of malaria to where we are. Remember, I said that there are 2 thoughts about it. Mm-hmm. The first is where we're supposed to be worried, mm-hmm, and the second one is where we're now supposed to say, oh, there's a relief.
Okay.
So at that time when missionaries had those issues, and it was the missionaries that began to press and speak about it. Hey, something is killing us and all that. And then they say it's a grave man, the white man's graveyard because of the malaria. We have moved over the years severally. There was a time that first there was no drug for it because people didn't know what it was.
They didn't know what it was.
Then there was a drug, and then there was a drug that was chloroquine, and then chloroquine was a very effective drug.
Very effective, but it used to come with a lot of itching.
Yeah, so eventually over the years, with the new development, researches and evolutions, then came in the ACT, artemisinin-based combination therapy, which not only can treat but can cure the malaria from people.
And so with this, some of us have felt, oh, we have gone past the era in which we should be worried about malaria.
Yeah, so that's where we're getting to. That's why I said that we should be relieved to some extent. So, though that is the ACT. So when people are sick, you treat them. Yeah. But one of the things we've noticed is that sometimes when people just feel I have a fever. Fever is the normal high temperature of the body. I have a fever, I have headache, I have bitter taste, and people just go to the chemist and say, give me malaria medicine. People give me chloroquine, and people just take the drug, and it got to a point that chloroquine now was not effective.
Right?
Yes, because people were abusing it. You know, when you abuse it over a time, your body gets used to it, and when you need it, you take it. It's like it's a normal pill. You're just taking.
Yeah, because you see, and that's one of the problems we have in Nigeria here, because on the counter drugs, people just go to pharmacists and they just think without a doctor's prescription, they can actually take medication. So you mean that has also contributed to some of the problems we have now? It
contributed to the resistance that came in. And so chloroquine was not being effective again. And there were searches and researches across the country. And they noticed that in some part of the country, it was so poor that when people take it, it was like it was not doing anything. But then came the ACT, artemisinin-based combination therapy. It's a combination of artemether and artemisinin. So when you bring two of them together, they work very effectively. So the way it works is one of them is coming like a fighter jet dropping bomb to weaken the enemy, and then the other one coming like a ground artillery to clear up and make it clean. So that is why it's a two-based combination. And when people take it, we ask them to follow the regiment, and that's why when you take it, they say the next drug should be taken immediately 8 hours after the first dose. That is what that's the directive. And then the next day you now take morning and evening. And anytime they tell you morning and evening, it's saying 12 hours. That's what it means. Yeah. So you take it for the next 2 days and then you complete the dose.
So are you worried that people are not complying?
Yeah, so the worry we're having now with the ACT is that now when people feel feverish, instead of going to be sure that it is malaria they're having, they just go by the ACT. But we're now saying that with what has happened, the government of Nigeria and partners have been able to make testing for malaria very common now with what we call the Malaria Rapid Diagnostic Test, RDT.
Is it free?
Well, in all government health facilities, it's free.
So I can walk up to any of
primary health care
centers, and then I get tested free.
You get if you feel feverish, you go meet the health personnel.
Are they going to take my blood or?
So it's a blood test. It's a blood test that works within 15-20 minutes. They can give you the result. However, the gold standard still remains the microscopy, which happens still in hospitals that they still try to check the malaria parasites.
Okay, so the point you're actually making is that diagnosis of malaria itself is very important.
Very, very important.
And then, of course, correct prescription of the medications and adherence to the dosage.
Very important.
Not just the fact that I've taken first dosage. A good number of persons listening to me here, at home, you will know that once you feel feverish and you take one dose of malaria, a good number of us abandon the other regime. So you're saying here that the other dosages, when we abandon it, can cause is responsible for a lot of problems we are having.
So some of the resistance that come from those not completing your dose, but not just even for malaria medicine, but for all medications.
Yes, even antibiotics.
Usually when you're tested and they see that there's something wrong with you, it's like a relay race. There are 4 people running the relays, and from the first person to the last person, they have to finish before they win.
Absolutely.
If the third person stops on the road, yes, you covered some distance, but you didn't win.
Absolutely.
Yes. So when you're taking medicine and they say take morning, take evening, or take every 8 hours or every 6 hours.
Because you need to exchange baton.
You have to exchange baton. So as the
in the realm of the biochemistry of his the pharmacokinetics and the biochemistry of his activities, what you're trying to let us see is that the fact that I take the first dose and I'm okay does not mean that I'm completely cured of malaria.
You're not, because when you take the drug, there's an effect of drug that makes you feel okay. And that's the problem when you even get the wrong diagnosis. So when you are not having malaria and you go take a medication, for taking that medication itself, it already makes you feel as if you're okay, but you're not okay.
No, but what advice do you have? Because a lot of times when people have malaria, we treat typhoid with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What is the relationship between typhoid and malaria? Are they brothers?
They're different things. So you see, there's fever.
That's their umbrella.
And you hear malaria fever, you hear typhoid fever, you hear yellow fever. There's all kind of fever.
What do you mean by fever?
Fever is just the body temperature change. So increased body temperature.
So what you are saying is that beyond malaria, there are other things that can cause increased body temperature.
Sometimes when people are hungry, they have headache.
They can have fever.
Yes. So somebody's having headache and they say I have malaria. It's not malaria. It's just that there's a change in your body system. What is causing it, you need to find out.
Absolutely.
So if what is causing your fever, your body pain, your joints, it's malaria, then they tell you to take ACT. But if it's not malaria, they do further examination so they can find the cause and treat it. But the good thing is we have to prevent it, and that is where the net distribution we are doing right now comes in.
Okay.
So in the process of trying to manage malaria, we come from the preventive measures, we go to the test, diagnostics, and then we go to the treatment.
Absolutely.
So when you come from the preventive measure, first you want to start by saying environmental management. How do you manage the vector, the mosquito itself that transmits the malaria? So when you have, especially this is rainy season now, in our neighborhoods, in our houses, you see tires that people have used, they left them on the ground, even the covers of Coca-Cola drinks or minerals, soft drinks, 7-Up, water collected in those things can become breeding place for mosquitoes.
Absolutely.
And so if you don't clean up your environment, you're only going to breed enough mosquitoes. And the more mosquitoes you have, the more rate of biting and the more rate of transmission. And so that can happen. So we try to manage the environment for the first time. Then the second thing we want to do is we want to prevent what we call malaria, preventive malaria in pregnancy. For women that are pregnant, you know, when a woman is pregnant, you want to also ensure that she doesn't have malaria. So when she goes to the hospital.
What about malaria and pregnancy? Is it of any significance?
Very big significance.
What's that?
Remember in the statistics I mentioned earlier, I said that children under 5, we say 3 out of 10, death is caused by malaria. For pregnant women, I say 1 out of 10 is caused by malaria.
How does malaria affect pregnancy?
Yeah, because when a woman is pregnant, one, immune system and all that is weakened. Now, when she gets bitten by malaria with a mosquito that transmits malaria to her, obviously because the immune system is not that strong, she gets it. Now, also, when a woman is pregnant, she feeds her baby from her system, you know, when there's that
through the placenta. Because she's actually sharing her blood system and everything. Yeah.
And the placenta is a good place where there is a lot of blood. Now, when the malaria parasite enters into the body, it looks for those places where there are blood, the liver and all that. And then when a woman is pregnant, that is where the blood goes, that's where the malaria goes. If the malaria is there, it reduces the oxygen that the baby gets, and the baby doesn't grow well. So when they give birth to some baby, you see them, they are very tiny. It's actually caused sometimes because there's no enough nutrition to the baby, which malaria is one of the contributing
factors. Apart from that, what other things of malaria cause?
Anemia. It reduces the blood. So when there's anemia, obviously you know that when there's no blood, it causes trouble. And that is why we don't even want the pregnant woman to get malaria. So when a woman is pregnant and she goes for ANC, at some particular time at the pregnancy, they give her ANC. They give her SP.
SP, yes.
Right?
Something to
IPT. Yeah.
Yes.
They give her IPT, and then they continue to give her that IPT and keep monitoring her. And that's why we advise people, anytime a woman is pregnant, please, she should go and register for ANC in the nearest medical facility. Absolutely. And then the third one, which is the nets. So if you have a barrier between you and the vector, then the mosquito can bite you. And the time mosquito bites you more is when you are inactive, when you're sleeping. And so researchers, WHO and others have said, let us use that barrier that can stop mosquitoes. Before it was just a net. But now we have brought what is now insecticide-treated net. Then it became long-lasting insecticide-treated net. First, it was insecticide-treated net that worked for 6 months, but now we're having it for 3 to 4 years. And that is why in Osun State now, we are distributing 3.6 million free nets across the state in all 332 wards, door to door.
Wow. So now, that's a very huge one. But these nets, how do you mount it? Because I'm sorry, the last time I used a net was possibly when I was in the secondary school.
Okay, at least you used it. That's a positive part of it.
Yes, historically. Although, you know, maybe because of my own knowledge, I want to ensure that my doors are not closed, my room windows are not open, and there's also a net built into the windows. Not everybody may have such opportunities. But I'm just wondering, how do they mount this net?
So there are different kind of net, different shapes of net. There's a conical net that you can hang it in one point in your room.
Okay.
All right. And it comes down like a shower.
How many people can come under that?
Yeah,
is it just one person?
No, you can actually cover even a big 6x6 bed. You can cover it.
Really?
Yeah, there are different sizes. All nets have different sizes.
And these nets are distributed free, or we buy it?
I'm just trying to explain that there's a conica. You know, we're talking about how to hang it, and I say conica is hung from one point.
But the
one we are sharing right now is the one you hang from 4 points.
Okay.
All right, you have to get 4 points on it. But sometimes people will tell you, I don't want to start nailing the wall of my house to nail it. So we advise people, by the edge of your bed, like I do in my house for my children, by the edge of the bed, the carpenter gets wood and he places 4 woods, and so we tie it there.
Okay.
So when the children wake, we just roll it over, and in the evening we place it and they sleep over it.
Is there a way your organization or through some of your helpers they can help to mount? I mean, as educated as I am, a good number of us may not even be as technical in mounting this. Because I'm seeing a barrier. I'm seeing a kind of not just a barrier, people could collect.
Yeah.
But when it comes to mounting, it's a great issue.
Yeah, that's
Is
true.
there anything that you have identified as an organization to say, okay, yes, you have come up with a form of barrier against us and the environment and the vector, yes. Yeah. But how do we also put it to use?
Yeah. So one of the things we do as the people are distributing the net is what we call the health talk.
Okay.
So when they come to a household before they give the net, we expect that they should give a health talk, talk about the importance of the net, and also talk about how to care for the net, including how to hang the net. So those are put into consideration. Okay. Even in the rural areas where they might not have those kind of bed, we advise and say you can get, even if it's like a paint rubber, you know, the small paint, 4 liters paint rubber, you put stones or sand inside and put sticks inside. So even in the evening in the rural area where they rest outside, they can put that and children can sleep inside the net before they go inside. So it's something that is flexible and can be used anywhere.
Okay, you're talking about it being treated. What do you mean?
Yeah, so insecticidal, it means that for the nets, they've been treated with some kind of I don't want
chemicals.
To say chemical, because when you say chemical, people get
let's say
scared.
drugs.
But yeah, so better there. So that has been put into those, woven into the production of those threads. So they are there and they're lasting. So they don't just stay for 1 month or 2 months, but they stay up to 3 to 4 years. That's why we say it's long lasting. So you can wash those nets up to 20 times within the lifespan of the print, but you have to wash them with mild soap, like key soap, bathing soap, not detergents and strong soap, because detergents they could destroy it the way it is. Yeah.
So what you're saying that those chemicals, how do they act when they are treated?
It's like a repellent. It's mosquito. Yeah, the mosquito perches on it. It repels the mosquito. Sometimes, depending on how long, it can also kill the mosquito.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Yes, viewers at home, you are having Mr. John OCHOLI, the campaign manager, Osun 2023 Free Nest Distribution. Is from the Society for Family Health. What you are listening to is about malaria. Malaria has been with us for years, and of course, it's been responsible for a lot of deaths of our children. What it's also telling us too is that a good number of our women who are pregnant can also be affected by malaria. And because of this, and because of what they have noticed, that's why they have come and said, okay, please let us do something about this malaria. We can see on our, as it's showing, children who, that's mosquito, but of course you also see children who are also affected, by malaria. And then the rate at which people will lose children towards it, I think there's something they call cerebral malaria, what about it?
Yeah, so when you don't treat the malaria in time, it gets to a point where it becomes severe malaria. And when it becomes severe malaria, obviously it begins to get into some organs and can affect. Sometimes when you see a child convulsing and all that, it will be as a result of malaria untreated. And that's why we say for children under 5, don't take chances. Once you notice that there's a difference in temperature rise, you take the child quickly to where they can seek help. Sometimes when they don't have a means of testing, they could actually give the child the malaria without the test, because it's under 5 and you don't want to take chances to get to those levels. No,
because a good number of, I'm Yoruba. Okay. And then, of course, when you keep having children dying and all that, they say it's one spirit or some form of offense of one god or goddess or something. True. It could have been malaria. It could have been because, of course, what we call abiku, the child just keep dying and dying. Yeah. Maybe it could have just been malaria that is continuously, responsible.
Because, exactly. Because even for adults, because of where we are staying, saying, if you ask yourself sometimes, how many episodes of malaria do I have a year? Sometimes you might treat yourself up to like 4, 5, 6 times, depending on your exposure to malaria.
Absolutely.
So imagine in rural areas where they don't have nets, there are a lot of bush and grass and water there, and there are a lot of mosquitoes, and they keep biting. As you're even taking the drug and the mosquitoes biting you, you might be surprised that once the drug finishes, you're collecting more of the doses of the malaria parasite, and then you go back again.
Now, you are from Abuja, Society for Family Health, and you are cooperating with international partners.
I'm from everywhere in Nigeria, sir. I've been to all the states to do net campaign.
But who are your hosts here?
So
how do you articulate your plan? How do you articulate your program? How does it get to the grassroots?
So first and foremost, this program is a program of the Osun State government.
So the Osun State government has bought
they own it.
Oh, really?
Yes. As a matter of fact, the wife of His Excellency, we had an investiture for her last week Monday as the net ambassador for the state. And she's like the face of the campaign, or face of the net use for the next, until the next campaign happens.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yes. We're also so honored to have the wife of the Oni, who was also there, and she also supported this activity laudably, great as it is. Then we had a flag off ceremony, and in that flag off ceremony, His Excellency the Deputy Governor represented the governor at that occasion, and it was so wonderful that he entered inside the net and he slept inside to demonstrate safety and use of the net, and people saw it. Now, at all the local government headquarters, there was also flag off by the local government chairman. Now, the flag off is not just a ceremony. It's to demonstrate state participation, state ownership, and call for people to use the net, because it shows that the net is safe. That is why very important people are entering inside to say, if I can enter, you should enter. We are also working with the traditional institutions. We've seen a lot of the traditional heads to tell them to mobilize the community to be part of this. We've gone to the religious institutions also to talk to them to be part of it. So we're working with every structure and every system in the state to see how we can get to the grassroots.
That's brilliant. Yeah, but let me ask a very layman question. We can see the deputy governor, sleeping inside the wife of the governor, also embracing it. But the challenge is always how do I, as a man in the grassroots,
get it,
as a lay person,
get it?
Where do I go? People are listening to us here. They've already identified. People are watching, yes, and then saying that, oh, this is a very brilliant initiative. Oh, if this is available, I think I would want to get for my family. I want to get for my children. Where can they go?
Okay, so the way it's done is the structure for the distribution is like I mentioned 333 wards of the state. So what we did was to do a micro planning.
Okay.
And in that micro planning, we went to every local government, and in every local government, we brought all health facilities. That's focal persons of the ward. Their health facility, in charges of health facilities.
The primary health care?
Primary health cares.
Okay.
So we brought them. Then we also brought the people you call WDCs, Ward Development Committee, chairman. We brought one of them to a meeting. And in that meeting,
that's more like a political office?
Yes, because they are more in the ward. They know the ward. Then we brought the health worker who has a catchment population and catchment settlements that attend to that ward. That facility.
That's good.
So we listed all the settlements by name, and beside them we listed all the population.
Really?
So when we did that, we now know the quantity of nets that every settlement will need, and also the number of households, because what we did is by nature of population, we are able to estimate households.
Houses, yes.
Now, we divided Osun State into 1,181 smaller units, like you have polling units. We call them distribution hubs.
Beyond the wards.
Beyond the wards. So we have 1,181 distribution hubs across the state.
Okay.
In each of the hubs, we have like 3 people who are going to be working for 12 days, starting last week Thursday on the 6th. Okay. And they are going to work up till the 17th for 12 days. Now they divide, so that gives them smaller units. They now divide them into streets and into days of work. So day 1, I'm going to street 1, street 2. Day 2, I'm going
Excuse me, are they going to be going around?
Every community, every nook, every corner, every street in the state for 12 days.
They'll be going around?
Yes.
Now, if I miss the 12 days, where do I go?
So what happens is when they go to a household and they don't meet people in the household, they're supposed to put what we call a revisit card. And on that card, the mobilizer will put his name and his number. So when you come, you can call them and say, hey, you came here, I was not around, I'm around now. Then they'll discuss with you when they can get back to your place to get that. Now, if we finish the campaign and there are people who don't get the net, which hopefully we are hoping not, because we are trying to do this, because after the 12 days, we have 2 days of what we call mop-up.
Okay.
If there are places we can...
Beyond the 12 days.
Beyond the 12 days. So that makes it 14 days eventually.
That's a great one.
But when the campaign is finished, then we now have what we call continuous distribution to make space or to cover for new sleeping spaces of new children and also for pregnant women. So they can go to ANC. During ANC clinic, they can get free nets. And during child welfare clinic for immunization, they can also get free nets.
This is quite brilliant. Viewers at home, you can agree with me that this initiative is brilliant. And we have Mr. John OCHOLI, the campaign manager, Osun 2023 free nets distribution for us to prevent malaria because of the havoc it's wreaking. So thanks for having you here. Let's go for a short break, and then when we come back, we're going to also address other issues concerning this free nets distribution. Thank you.
Prince Royal was born 6th of December 1910 at Raba Village, Sokoto, northwestern Nigeria. His father was a district head and heir apparent to the Sultanate throne from the house of Usmanu Danfodio, a religious and social reformer who brought the Habib dynasty under the Fulani Caliphate in the beginning of the 19th century. Ahmadu Bello raised the bar of political consciousness and participation when, in 1944, he engineered the establishment of the Northern People's Congress (NPC) as the first political party in northern Nigeria and the rallying point for politicians in the region before independence. History will not forget Ahmadu Bello for his charisma and political sagacity, which provided easy passage for his kinsmen to assume political and administrative positions in Nigeria's post-independence era. The distinguished elder statesman and Sardauna of Sokoto has his face on his country's 200 naira currency as a mark of honor to one of the architects of Nigeria's independence. Western Spring Television identifies Ahmadu Bello as a watershed character in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
Thanks. Yes, you're welcome to your program, The Spring Clinic, a platform where we discuss different aspects of our healthcare. We bring in experts, stakeholders who will educate us, and then we'll be able to at least access care and other forms of resources that can help us to keep healthy. Like they always say, that health is wealth. I have with me Mr. John OCHOLI, the campaign manager of Osun 2023 free nets distribution from Society for Family Health. And we have heard in the other segment of the program how the free net mosquito net distribution.
Yes.
Treated.
Has
been launched.
Yes.
And of course, the government is the owner of this program, is the receptacle for this program. And of course, we are on the aspect of how people can access.
Yes.
I want to ask, yes, you said the campaign is going to start soon.
It started already.
Oh, it has started already.
Today is day 5. As a matter of fact, like I say, we're distributing 3.6 million nets in Osun. That's the target.
Yep.
As at yesterday evening, we had done 1.2 million.
Wow.
Yes. So so what we do is we're using technology for this work here.
Okay.
So you see people come to the house carrying something that looks like a phone. Is actually our device that we're using as a technology. So when they come to the house and they ask people some certain question like, how many people currently live in this house? So we want to provide cover for people who are currently living in the house. And we try to be sure that people don't misinterpret the question to say, how many children do you have? Because sometimes if you tell somebody, how many children do you have? He's bound to tell you about his daughter that is married somewhere, his son that is in Abuja working.
So that he has more.
Yeah, but we want currently living in the house. So when they do that, the device will now, when they impute the figure, it generates the number of nets you give to the household. And when it does that, from the 1,181 locations across the state,
that's okay.
In Osun here, we can see it on the dashboard that this phone has given out 7 nets or 3 nets or 4 nets in a day. As a matter of fact, we have noted that some nets, some of the devices distributed net to people that were on the boundary of Osun and Kwara. And we quickly call their attention and say, be sure you're not into Kwara State, be sure you're in Osun State. And then somebody goes there and say, hey, I have to take my GPS from here and look at the map and talk with the community people and say they are actually in Osun State.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
How do you ascertain the number of people in the house? Like my house now is locked.
Yeah. So
how do you assess me?
Yeah.
Because between Mondays and Fridays, you may never get anybody in my house 8 to 5.
So remember what I said about the revisit? And then the other part is that in addition to distributing the net, we also have what we call the community mobilization aspect.
Okay.
So in every ward in Osun State, we have 5 people that we call town announcers who we have picked, and they work with the timeline and the work plan to tell the community and say, hey, for Street A, the people visit you on day 1. For Street W, they're coming on day 3. For Street WX, they're coming on day 5.
That's
like
brilliant.
That. Now, the town announcers are supposed to be working. Then we also have CSO, civil society organizations, who are also moving in the community and also talking to people. And what we do is encourage people and say, please try to be or leave somebody at home. We don't want to do it by proxy. So at the neighbor, sometimes the neighbor cool, sometimes the neighbor might not be honest, sometimes the neighbor might just want to, but we try to make sure that people are there. And we tell people we can't give the net in workplaces, we can't give them in the marketplaces, we can't give them in the street.
Because it will overlap.
It will overlap because you might just get from the office place and go home and get another one.
Say you don't get, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just putting all those.
What do you do about, I don't know how to describe it, maybe you talk about monitoring and evaluation.
Yeah.
I know that at times some of these nets are being used for fish farming.
Yeah.
Are you worried about that?
Yeah, we're worried.
What are the measures you have put in place?
So again, I talked about advocacy to community leaders and gatekeepers. And we say they play a major role in trying to tell people. Another thing is ignorance. So somebody gets a net that's supposed to protect him and his family, and instead of protecting himself, he decides to do something else.
You guys have seen some form of them in fish farms,
we've
ponds, and all of that.
But again, we believe that as we keep informing, mobilizing, educating, people will do the right thing. Now, remember I talked about health education or health talk before they give the net. All those about not using the nets or using the net in the right way is discussed. The town announcers also in the messages they give to people is also to tell people not to do that. The advocacies to community leaders, we also tell them to disabuse people or discourage people from using the net for other things like that. And then just like I hear on radio now, there are other media stations that will play that as part of social corporate responsibility or your health program. You can call on our people and we can come talk about how to educate people to do the right thing, because when you don't use the net correctly, like you're doing right now, like
and the Western Spring Television is actually doing that.
Exactly.
Yes. Beyond the fact that we are convinced it's effective, any documented evidence that where these nets are distributed, there's a bit of an impact in the incidence or prevalence of malaria?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, there was a time that malaria, we didn't even know what it was. Then there was a time we knew what it was, but then there was no cure. Then there was a time there was a cure, there was a treatment, and then the treatment was not effective again.
Yeah.
And then a lot of things started coming into it, and it was like a cocktail. You know, you're cooking a soup. If there's no Maggi, it doesn't taste well. If there's no salt, it's not complete. So in the cost of managing malaria control itself, Nigeria is driving towards where we say zero malaria. We want to get to a place where in the prevalence level, we have less than 10%. Now, let me explain.
Okay.
So where the mosquito nets have really helped. So there was a time in Nigeria that if you come and test 10 people, from the 10 of us, 45 or 47% of us will have the parasite.
Yeah.
All right, that means that from those number of people you tell, we have the parasite. So you can say from every 10, you can see 4 or 5 people have it. Then the net use was encouraged. Net campaign started in Nigeria in earnest in 2009.
Okay.
The first campaign was in Kano, and it went across the country, and the effect was being seen. And then there was a test, another evaluation again that was done in the country years later. And when the evaluation was done, we saw that it was coming down. Then it came to 27%. And currently we're around 21% as a country, which means from every 10 people, maybe just 2 will you see the parasite. And that is why lately, when people are sick and they say they have fever or they feel feverish, and you go to the clinic, you might just be tested and they tell you that you're not having malaria. So it might not be. So we are overcoming the malaria. So something else might be wrong with you. And then the doctors or the medical person will now recommend for a further test
to be able to be sure that it's not actually the
So the net is actually working.
What actually informed is your treatment of nets?
Yeah.
Was there a difference between the time you were using ordinary nets and now that, of course, you now say, let's start treating the nets?
Yes, so there are a lot of, like we talked about, most of everything that is happening about the health is directed or controlled with the guideline of the WHO.
Okay.
Yeah, so at the point it was just like we're doing research, even for different diseases, there are researches of new medication, new management, new procedures, and all that they keep coming. So even for the mosquito nets itself, there was a time that it was the ordinary mosquito net. And then there were researches to say, how do we manage, also reduce or repel the mosquito? And that was when the treated net came. So there was a time that it was insecticide treated net that you dip it and treat it and it lasts for 6 months. But it was like sometimes behavior is a thing that people might not even remember to do it again after 6 months. They forget. And so other researchers came and said, hey, if we embed this into the trade, or even when we're making it, it can actually last for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And that way it helps people. They don't have to go get to treat
Which is a better strategy.
Somebody is actually...
Some people have also talked about the fact that there are aerial insecticides. I don't know whether you have heard of that.
Yes, aerial fumigation.
Yeah. Have you thought of that, or you feel we don't have as much problem with malaria for that to be a strategy?
There's so many things that are put into, but the aerial fumigation people talk about are not things that we have done anywhere. People just talk about it, but what we do or what has been happening to manage the vector, which is the mosquito itself. And I talked about the environment management. I talk about, when you're talking about environmental management, there's also what is called larviciding.
What's that?
So larvicide, you want to manage the larva itself at the stage of breeding, where they breed, where there are
potential breeding spots.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's some what do you call it? Again, they are like chemicals that you put, and it reduces their breeding, and they're not able to breed very well. So it reduces the population of the mosquitoes itself. Then I talked about the net. Then there's what we call the indoor residual spray, where again you bring some of the same thing that you use on the mosquito net and you spray it on the wall. But the thing is, some of them are very expensive. And so you want to use what is more economical, and again, it's
then you have a wider coverage at the same time.
And then it's a behavioral thing. Yes, and then you can manage and talk to people continuously. And when you have it as a behavior, and you begin to use this net every day, you see that the incidence of mosquitoes, the incidence of malaria treatment is reduced.
Apparently, yes. Thank you so much, Mr. John OCHOLI. Now, another aspect is, I know that there are mosquito repellents. And those ones are quite expensive.
Yeah, it depends. But if you compare it, like, again, so some people maybe might look at that, hey, why don't you talk about the fleets, the spray and all that? You spray in the air, you fleet and all that. Yes, there are. But how economical is that for the average Nigerian? Like I talk about the archetype family. When you talk about behavior change, or you're talking about medical, you're talking about the archetype personality. There's that one man somewhere that you want to reach with your treatment, or with your drug, or with your commodity, and with your net or with your behavior. And for the campaign, we pulled one archetype family in Osun State and said there's a man somewhere, one Okada rider. He's somewhere and he has children. And his dream every day is that the children will go to school, they'll be healthy, and one day they'll take care of him. And he goes out in the rain and he toils just to make sure that these children are okay. Now, he also prays every night and pray that God keep my children safe and healthy so that they don't fall sick. And one of the sicknesses is the malaria. So we tell people that if we do this job very well and this man gets a net, that means he'll be happy and he'll say, God bless us for the work we are doing. So we target those kind of people who don't have anybody.
The vulnerables.
Yes, and try to reach them.
Now, this net, is it per person?
It's
this one you are distributing.
Yes, so
I have one for me. My son has another one. My daughter has another one. My wife has another one.
No, so like that's why I said when we use the device to know the number of people in the house.
I know, yes.
And then you get it. So
okay, I'm 6 in my house, for instance.
So if you're 6 in the house and we put that number 6 into the device will do a calculation, because the calculation is that one net covers 1.8 people. Okay,
almost 2%.
Yeah, so eventually we don't want to bore people with those big calculations. So one net covers 2 people.
2%.
Yes, but to a maximum of 4 nets in a household.
Okay.
So if you are up to 6, up to 8, you can get 4 nets. Okay. But if you are more than that, we can't give you above more than 4 nets.
But does it also have some other hazards that could be associated with these nets? Because I'm imagining that people who are staying in houses that are not well ventilated, having to stay under the net and all of that.
So that's where the health education comes from. So in the health education, we tell people that when you get the net, air it in the shade, airy place for 24 hours. Once you air it for 24 hours, and you spray it over your bed, you can sleep. There's no issue with it again.
Yeah, people are also thinking, can they use insecticides in conjunction with the mosquito net, or just when they have the treated mosquito net is just enough for it?
Yeah, so if you want to still fleet your room, fine, but once you have the net, you don't need that.
Because it's already treated.
And again, I was talking about that family, that is the average family. So now how much is a fleet? Let's take one of the fleets. It's about 1.9, the cheapest I think in the market now. Let's say you get for 1.5.
Yes.
So you get it for 1.5. And how many can you use in a week for a 2-bedroom flat or for a 2-room sleeping space? All right, maybe let's use right here, 2-room sleeping space. So you have 1.5, you have to use it twice in a week. So if you're using it twice in a week, that's like 3,000 in a week. 3 times 4, that's like 12,000. 12,000 in a month. 12 times 12, that's about 144,000 in a year. Times 3 years, that the net 300,000. That can do millions of better things for the family if you can sleep in the free net. So we always advise people, why don't you use the net and use it well?
And use it well.
Yeah.
Now, for how long do you say this net will last? 2 years?
That's 3 years. The last time we gave was in 2020. Okay. And then we are here now.
And so, of course, the public health lectures will let people know how they will take care of the nets.
Exactly.
That's nice.
So like we said, get the net, spray it in the shade for 24 hours. Put it over your sleeping space. You can wash this net up to 3 to 4 times in a year if it's dirty. So that means if you even say you wash 4 times in a year for like 3 years, that means you're working for up to 16 or 15 times within the period. And you can sew it when it's torn. Just sew it with thread and needle, and then you can continue to use it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Has your organization ever been involved in intervention, direct intervention before in the past, like distribution of anti-malarias and all of that?
Yes, yeah.
In the past.
So like I said, it's a combination of a lot of things coming in. So even as the nets are being distributed right now, the donor, the Global Fund and PMI and other partners who are supporting Nigeria are also providing anti-malaria ACTs in health facilities.
Part of this program.
Yes, they are also providing the RDT to test, and also they're also trying to see there's what we call the tax shifting and tax sharing, where even pharmacies and some of the patent medicine vendors are also being involved in.
That's good.
In maybe conducting this RDT. The reason why they're doing this is to ensure that as many as take ACT, they want to ensure that most of them are tested and they are sure that they need ACT before they take it.
Not that they are just taking
ACT.
The ACTs because they just have fever.
Exactly.
Because today, viewers, we have learned that because somebody just has increased body temperature does not just mean it is malaria.
Exactly, yeah.
There is a necessity for us to get tested. And some of these tests are available in our primary healthcare centers,
free,
and then for us free, so that we know that we are not just treating malaria when it is not malaria. And of course, once we get into the culture of prevention, that ensures that the mosquito does not bite us. It helps to reduce the incidence of malaria.
Exactly.
And of course, the most vulnerable set of people are the children under five and then pregnant women. Of course, which could lead to a lot of mortality and even morbidity.
Yeah.
Viewers at home, we have been speaking with Mr. John OCHOLI, the campaign manager, Osun 2023 Free Nest Distribution from the Society for Family Healthcare, Abuja. Who has been in charge of, I think it's 5 days now that they have been distributing nets.
It is the 5th day.
The 5th day.
We still have 7 more days to go.
7 more days. And another 2 days.
Yes, please.
Making 14 days. So for all of us in Osun State, this is good news, and we should spread the news that we should ensure that we benefit from these nets. It has been proven scientifically that when people use these nets, there's decrease in incidence of malaria. And of course, if you ever have malaria, you could actually approach the primary health care to get tested and even get treated, correctly. And one of the things we have learned again here is that
people should also learn to even go to labs to do tests. It's 500 naira or 1,000 naira, but at least you're sure that what I'm having is malaria. If it's not, you seek for further.
And this is also a kind of an advice to a good number of us who already have our own doctors who never went to the medical school. We just go to the chemist and say, I know what is wrong with me. And then they put, there's what they call akape. I don't know whether you guys have akape. They put analgesics, they put antibiotics, they put anti-malaria. Because what they are trying to do is to be able to attack what is going on and see which one. And what we don't, what do you think, what do you have to say about that? Do you think it's a safe way to manage
so that's some of the things that you talk about drug abuse. So if you're taking all those drugs together, you don't know the effect of what can happen. It can lead to some other things or create some other problem in the body, organs or so. So most times, even when you're taking medications, when you go to clinics, they give you drugs. Sometimes they say, take this one before this one, take this one after this one, take this one with food. But when they give you those,
the akape is to gamble.
You're just it's a gamble.
If it is another bacterial infection, the antibiotics with it. If it is malaria, to handle. If it is typhoid, to handle. And then of course, and the unfortunate thing is that your body system is being bombarded. Your liver is under attack. Your kidney is under attack, and that may be responsible for a good number of end organ failures that we're having. Yes, it's been a very wonderful time with you, Mr. OCHOLI.
Thank you, sir.
The campaign manager of Osun 2023 Free Nest Distribution from Society for Family Health. Viewers at home, you will agree with me that we have learned a great deal about malaria today, and that the fact that it's better we prevent malaria than it's injuring our wives and then our children and even us. And of course, reducing our capacity to contribute meaningfully to society. I am Dr. DR OYEWOLE, your regular anchor on Spring Clinic, expecting to see you next week this same time for this program. So, Mr. John OCHOLI, it's been a pleasure having you around.
Pleasure too. Thank you very much.
Wishing you a very successful campaign.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming.
All right.